an exocrine fashion. Endocrine, it releases the female sex hormones into the bloodstream. Show the female sex hormones. Estrogen and progesterone. How does it do that? هلا ايش عم نشوف. Histologically, the ovary is divided into 4 distinct regions. هناخذهم من outside to the inside. أنا أحكي لكم الدكتور على السيرفيس of the ovary, it is lined by simple cuboidal epithelium, right? Which will serve germinal epithelium, and this one, it doesn't have anything to do with the production of oocyte. This epithelium is actually continuous with the mesenteric, the peritoneum. Okay, it's a mesothelium. That's what makes it so interesting. Usually, mesothelium is single squamous. Mesothelium is single squamous. But here in the ovary, the germinal epithelium is actually simple cuboidal. That is continuous with the peritoneal fold of the ovary. شو اسمه هذا peritoneal fold of the ovary؟ سهلة. Meso? Fine. Okay. Beneath the germinal epithelium, you have a whitish capsule of dense irregular connective tissue, lot of collagen, whitish color. We're going to call it tunica albugenium, just right into the testis. Let's go to 2 main regions in the ovary, inside. You have an outer cortex and an inner medulla. The outer cortex is the most important area. As you can see, it contains the ovarian follicles. Between the ovarian follicles, you have connective tissue stroma. Right? What's the meaning of ovarian follicles? Ovarian follicles include 2 things. The janis, the oocyte, with its surrounding layer, with its surrounding epithelium. This is why the epithelial cells are termed follicular cells. We have, as you can see, different sizes and types of ovarian follicle, which we're going to talk about. As for the medulla, the ovarian follicle, as you can see, it is composed mainly of loose connective tissue, which is the site that contains most of the blood vessels and the nerve and the lymphatics of the ovary. There is no clear delineation between the cortex and the medulla. Right? You are going to depend under the microscope. If you see follicles, you are in the cortex. No follicle-rich vascularization, no other than the medulla. Right. So over here, شو متوقع هاي الاريا 1؟ cortex, a lot of follicles. شو الكفرنج 1؟ هون this layer شايفينها highly acidic. This is the tunica albugenium connective tissue. على السيرفيس you cannot see it على هذا المagnification. We will have the germinal epithelium, simple cuboidal epithelium. بينما this area is ايش؟ the medulla, loose connective tissue with a lot of blood vessels. So let's talk about these ovarian follicles with development of the oocytes. Oogenesis is actually quite different from spermatogenesis. Do you know? Sperms are produced in the testis. Spermatogenesis starts at puberty under the effect of testosterone. Oogenesis is quite different. Actually, oogenesis starts prenatal, before birth. How is that? Okay. Now we told you in embryology, all sexual cells are derived from something called primordial germ cells. That developed in the wall of yolk sacs and migrated into the primitive gonad, the primitive ovary and testis during the 5th week of development. Now, in the female, the primordial germ cells, once they reach the primitive ovary, they will directly differentiate into oogonia. In male, they differentiate into spermatogonia. What's different between males and females? In males, they stay spermatogonia until puberty. Female, no. The oogonia will undergo mitotic division and they will differentiate into primary oocytes. And the process is started. Okay. These primary oocytes are diploid cells. Supposedly they must undergo meiosis 1 to be turned into secondary oocytes. But these primary oocytes will be arrested in prophase 1 of the meiosis 1. The 3 stages of meiosis: prophase, metaphase, anaphase, etc. But even before birth, the ovary do in fact contain primary oocytes that are arrested in which stage? Prophase of meiosis 1. All these oocytes, each one of them will be surrounded by a layer of flat epithelial cells. Beneath these flat epithelial cells, there will be a basal lamina to separate them from the stroma of the ovary. These flat epithelial cells will be termed follicular cells, squamous cells. The primary oocytes and the surrounding follicular cells will be termed the primordial follicle. When I say before birth, the ovary is filled with primordial follicle, I mean primordial follicle what it is. It's a primary oocyte arrested in prophase 1, surrounded by a layer of flat follicular cells. Now, the number of these these follicles is variable. Actually, before birth, about the 5th month, they reach its maximum number. And in the 5th month, the ovary contains around 7 million primordial follicles. The number will decrease dramatically during the following months. At birth, okay, the number has decreased about 500,000, from 400,000 to 1 million primordial follicles. During the childhood, the number will keep on decreasing. How does it decrease? Most of the follicles, they will undergo atresia. Atresia means follicular degeneration, death of the oocytes and the follicular cells. Once the female reaches puberty, the ovary will only contain about 40,000 primordial follicles. The maximum prenatally, 5 months, how many? 7 million short hands. At birth, 400,000, 1 million. During childhood, the number decreases. لحد ما نوصل للpuberty بيكون النمبر 40,000 in the ovary. Now, once the female reaches puberty, the story changes. These follicles, they will start growing. Each month, under the effect of the pituitary hormone, mainly FSH, follicle-stimulating hormone, as the name indicates, each month, a group of these follicles, a group of the 40,000, around 15 to 20 follicles, they will be selected. And then they will undergo successive stages of growth during this month. From these 15 to 20 follicles, only one of them, the most prominent one, that will undergo ovulation. شو معنى ovulation? شو بصير؟ يعني it will be expelled from the ovary into the egg, into the uterine tube, into the umbilical region of the uterine tube, awaiting for the arrival of sperms and fertilization. فشو اسم الهرمون اللي أدى للgrowth؟ FSH, follicle stimulating hormone. Each month we select 15 to 20, and only one, the most prominent one, will complete its growth and it will be ovulated. Let's talk about the different stages of growth. The first stage of growth is the primordial follicle will be turned into the primary follicle. Now, the FSH will stimulate growth in both the oocyte and the surrounding follicular cells. First, the oocyte, it will grow in size, its cytoplasm will increase. But regarding its nuclear state of chromosome, it will stay as it is, arrested in a prophase manner. As for the follicular cells, the epithelial cells, هم شو كانوا primordial follicle؟ كانوا simple squamous, flat, صح؟ They will grow into a layer of simple cuboidal epithelium, surrounded by a basal layer. Later, okay, the epithelial cells will proliferate more and more, and they will be turned into a layer of stratified cuboidal epithelium. Thus, the primary follicle is divided into two substages, if you want. The first is termed a unilaminar primary follicle, one layer of cuboidal epithelium. The other one is the multilaminar primary follicle. The epithelium has turned into stratified cuboidal. What other changes? This is the oocyte, this is the nucleus and nucleolus. These are the follicular cells that are stratified. Once they become stratified, these cells will show a lot of secretory granules within their cytoplasm. So you can name them, instead of follicular cells, granulosa cells. That's right, it's the same thing. When I say granulosa cells, I mean the follicular cells. The stratified epithelial cells are the oocyte. Now, on you have a basal lamina. This is the stroma, the connective tissue stroma of the ovary that surrounds the follicle. The stromal cells of the ovary will differentiate into two parts, two distinguished regions. The inner stromal cells, they will be termed the theca internal cells. Theca and connective tissue support. The outer connective tissue cells will be termed theca external. What's the difference? The theca internal cells, they are secretory cells. They do have a lot of secretory granules. The theca external, not put here in the diagram, are the normal connective tissue cells that will act as a supporting capsule. This is if theca cells are connective tissue, يعني vascularized ولا non-vascularized? Connective tissue. في vessels ولا ما في? Of course. As for the granulosa cells, epithelial cells, vascularized ولا non-vascularized. فدائما نحكي surrounding of the oocytes are divided into a vascularized or avascularized region, the granulosa, the epithelium, and the vascularized portion, which is the theca, was separated by a basal lamina. But how would the oocyte get its nutrition? I guess this is easy. Diffusion. Nutrients will diffuse from the theca through the granulosa cells into the oocyte. The final change that is clear here, but between the granulosa cells and the oocytes, you can see there is a dark line that separates them. This is a shell of the glycoproteins that is termed the zona pellucida. This shell of glycoprotein will be secreted by the oocyte to separate it from the surrounding granulosa cells. فthis is the final shape of the primary multilaminar follicle. تعال نشوفها. يلا تعال ننزل. شو هاي؟ السيل. oocyte. شو نحكي؟ primary oocyte arrested in what? prophase 1. وهي نيوكليس تبعتها وهي نيوكليول والهي هيتيروكروماتين. الكروموسومز راح condensed. وهذا this is what the zona pellucid glycoprotein. وthese epithelial cells are the granulosa cells. A basal lamina with connective tissue over here, which is what the theca. Directly surrounding or directly beneath the basal membrane, you have the theca interna, which are secretory cells, and an outer layer of theca externa. As we said, the granulosa contains secretory granules. Theca interna are secretory cells. Secretion of what? شو فينا الهرمونز اللي تطلع من الاوفري هلا؟ Estrogen, progesterone. Both the theca interna cells in association with the granulosa cells will secrete estrogen into the bloodstream. I guess the whole story of physiology. The theca secrete the steroid precursor, which will be converted into estrogen by the granulosa cells under the effect of the aromatase enzyme. تاخذوا ايش بالفسيولوجي. فلا بس لما نحكي لكم مين افرز الاستروجين شو بتحكوا لنا؟ The theca and the granulosa cells that line the wall of the ovarian follicles. The second stage of growth, it will be termed the secondary follicle. هاي قدامكم الموديل يحكوا لي شو التشينج اللي صار. واضح انه فيها هدول صح؟ هدول spaces within which cells شو اسمهم الابيثيليال cells؟ granulosa. Below stage, the secondary follicle stage, this is the most striking feature. The appearance of fluid-filled spaces within the granulosa cells. The fluid within these spaces is called the nuclear folliculi. It's a serous fluid that is rich with the nutrients and high concentration of estrogen and sexual hormones. And then what also أنا عندي هون كل الفوليكل كبرت بشكل عام بس أهم change هو ظهور السpaces. The spaces will be termed antron, and due to this fact, the secondary follicle is usually named antron follicle. Okay, this is the main difference between the primary follicle. Now, احنا حكينا each month how many follicles we choose? Only one will ovulate. The most prominent one will reach the final stage of growth, which is the mature Graafian follicle. هلا هذه only one of the 15 will reach this stage, this follicle will appear before ovulation. But this is why it is also termed the pre-ovulatory stage, just before ovulation. هلا شو الهرمون اللي كان that causes the different stages of growth from primordial to primary to secondary شو حكينا؟ FSH صح؟ FSH okay follicle stimulating hormone. الاستروجين reason that students you always mix them up. ال FSH from the pituitary control the ovary يعني ال FSH leads to the growth of the ovarian follicle. The estrogen is secreted by these follicles to control what? All the other sexual organs in the female. Estrogen causes general growth in the reproductive organ, in the breast, etc., etc. But we are mainly concerned with the estrogen effects on the endometrium, on the uterus. Once the estrogen is secreted, okay, it will go to the endometrial wall of the uterus and it will cause proliferation and the growth of it. So this is interesting. And before ovulation, it's a stage of growth. Growth in the ovary. The follicles grow. While they are growing, they secrete estrogen that lead to growth in the endometrium, right? In the wall of the uterus. Now, as we said, the last stage appears before ovulation. Before ovulation occurs at mid-cycle in female. مظبوط the first year, each month in female بالعادة تكتبوا you consider 28 days, صح? The average. يعني this stage will appear at mid-cycle, day 14. هلا هون what leads to the appearance of the conversion of secondary follicle into a mature Graafian follicle. Here in day 14 we have a surge of LH, luteinizing hormone. The luteinizing hormone will choose the most prominent secondary follicle and convert it into a mature Graafian follicle. شو اللي changes اللي صارت؟ شو صار بالانترم؟ كبر ولا صغر؟ Much larger. شو السيل هاي؟ Primary oocytes. أهم change إنه كانت شو arrested in a prophase of meiosis 1. Once the follicle reaches this stage, meiosis 1 will finally be completed. And the primary oocyte just before ovulation, it will undergo meiosis 1 and be a secondary oocyte. Secondary oocyte is a haploid cell, بينما the primary oocyte is a diploid cell. Another change, the granulosa cells, we will divide them into regions. The granulosa cells that surround the oocytes directly, they will be termed corona radiata. Corona is just like a crown around the oocyte. Radiata because they radiate. And The granulosa cells that attach the oocyte with its corona radiata to the remainder of the wall of the follicle will be termed the cumulus oophorus, a hillock, okay, to attach them. Why did we use these names? Because this is for ovulation. The Graafian follicle is very large. You can actually see it with your naked eye. At the diameter تبعها, it can reach 2.5 millimeter. But the day of ovulation, it actually bulges into the wall of the ovary. It will penetrate the germinal epithelium and the tunica albuginea and will be released into the ovula. صح? It is very large. This is why مش معقول كل هاي الfollicle to be ovulated outside the ovary. شو بنعرف معها connective tissue في no way. What actually ovulates is the oocyte with its surrounding from this region. At the region of the cumulus oophorus, the oocyte with its surrounding corona radiata will break free into the uterine tube. يعني شو اللي بيovulate الاوسايت شو وضعها برايمري ولا سكندري؟ سكندري صار بهذا الستيج. والزول حواليها هذا الشل شو اسمه؟ أول شكل الكورونا زونا فيلوسيدا with some granulosa cells that are termed what? Corona radiata. You have to know these, then once it's the fallopian tube or the uterine tube awaits the sperm, these are the layers that the sperm has to penetrate. At first the sperm has to penetrate the corona radiata, then it has to penetrate the zona pellucida. But what will happen to the remainder of the follicle? The remainder of the granulosa and the theca that remain in the wall of the ovary. Yes. The remainder of the granulosa and the theca cells, they will be converted into a temporary endocrine gland termed the corpus luteum. As the name indicates, هذا الconversion راح يصير under the what hormone? Luteum, yes, under the effect of luteinizing hormone. What will happen is the following. The remainder of the granulosa and the theca germinal cells, under the effect of LH, they will become heavily vascularized. They will require a large amount of lipid droplets within their cytoplasm, okay, and they will be yellowish in color. They have a characteristic yellowish pigmentation. So instead of calling them granulosa and theca, we're going to call them lutein cells. Granulosa lutein cells, the yellowish granulosa cells, and the theca lutein cells. They will be interdigitated within each other to form the large corpus luteum. What is the function of corpus luteum? Yes. The theca or granulosa before ovulation, they used to secrete estrogen, right? After ovulation, once the granulosa and theca are converted into corpus luteum, they will keep on secreting estrogen, but in addition to that, they will secrete a huge amount of progesterone. The corpus luteum is a temporary gland that secretes progesterone. It appeared at the day of ovulation, صح? 14. It will remain functioning for an extra 14 days in the second half of the menstrual cycle, secreting progesterone. حكينا الاستروجين before ovulation شو كان يعمل؟ نروح على endometrium and causes growth of the endometrium, right? The progesterone, on the other hand, it will affect the endometrium in a different manner. In endometrium, we have uterine glands, secretory glands. The progesterone will stimulate these glands to produce a large amount of secretion, glycogen-rich secretion. Why is that? Why do you want all these secretions? Again? Excellent. Yes. This is after ovulation. The oocyte and with the surrounding other fallopian tube, there is a chance of fertilization, and there is a chance of formation of a zygote. And this zygote will need to be implanted on the uterus, so the wall of the uterus must be succulent, okay, to ease the implantation process, and this secretion will serve as a source of nutrition for the newly implanted embryo. طيب حكينا كم من آية قد ايه بضل شغال الكوربس لوتيوم as you said from day 14 to day 28. طب in case there was no pregnancy, no fertilization has occurred, أكيد مش رح تضل, you will not keep on secreting forever. At day 28, the corpus luteum will regress and shrink slowly, and it will be turned to a mass of fibrotic scar connective tissue. When luteal cells, the yellowish cells, they will degenerate and die. The remnants of the corpus luteum will be turned to corpus albicans, the white body. White, and it turned from lutein secretory cells into a fibrotic connective tissue cells. It's a scar tissue, okay? Connective tissue cells. Due to that, the levels of progesterone will drop significantly, and the whole endometrial wall that was built by the estrogen will become succulent by the progesterone. It will be shed during menstruation. مظبوط؟ Now, each month we have from about 15 to 20 follicles. Only one of them will reach the pre-ovulatory stage, it will ovulate. Now what will happen to the remainder, to the other 14 that we selected each month? The other 14, they will die gradually by a process called follicular atresia. Follicular atresia means death of the ovarian follicle, disruption. How will they die? Histologically, we have 3 procedures that occur during this atresia. First, the oocyte will undergo apoptosis and it will die. The epithelial cells, the granulosa cells, they will be separated from the basal lamina. As you know, once the epithelium is separated from the basal lamina, it loses its nutrition, it will die. And all the remnants of the granulosa and the fecal cells, they will be phagocytosed by macrophages within the ovarian stroma. Atresia occurs all the time, but it is usually significant in times of hormonal imbalances. In female, the whole cycle is controlled closely by hormones, but هي أنت بتبلش هذا الجروث حكينا أنت puberty صح؟ بتضل الفيميل تجيها menstrual cycle until menopause. At time of puberty and at time of menopause, the hormonal concentration are a little bit imbalanced. So in these specific times, right, the follicular atresia is more predominant. Done with the ovary, let's go to the ducts of the female genitalia. Let's start with the uterine or fallopian tube. It's a muscular tube that is composed of 3 layers. An inner mucosa, or the mucosa is always composed of what? Come on, you know that already. Epithelium and just من connected tissue تحت الابithelium. Lamina propria خلاص. اوكي اسمعوا كثير هاي. Mucosa equals epithelium زائد lamina propria always. Under the mucosa you have a layer of muscularis, and outside of the fallopian tube you have a layer of serosa. What's the meaning of serosa? Serosa adventitia. ويا serosa يا adventitia. شكرا. Yes, serosa means peritoneal covering. Adventitia means connective tissue covering. No peritoneum, attached to the surrounding organs. Just a minute ago, in the previous lecture, you talked the whole uterine tube is within the broad ligament. صح, peritoneum. يعني شو الأوتر layer راح تكون serosa ولا adventitia? Serosa. فإذا 3 layers, mucosa, muscularis, and serosa. Let's talk about the mucosa of the uterine tube, the epithelium and lamina propria. Clearly you can see this is a whole cross-section in the uterine tube. This is the lumen. Look at the epithelium and lamina propria. Highly folded, incredibly folded. This is the labyrinth appearance, labyrinth زي المتاع, alright? It is caused by extensive folding in the mucosal layer into the lumen of the uterine tube. Now, the type of epithelium that lines the uterine tube is a simple columnar epithelium that contains 2 types of cells. Ciliated cells. والcilia, شو significance of cilia? Of air. Yes. The sweeping movement will aid in propelling the oocyte, the ovum towards the uterus. And you have non-ciliated cells that are secretory cells. They are termed Beck cells. The Beck cells secrete a nutritious medium, nutritious secretion for the nutrition of the embryo and also for the nutrition of the sperms. The sperms actually use these secretions during their trip toward the ovum and the fallopian tube. So when you zoom in, this is the epithelial lining of the uterine tube. You can clearly see 2 types of cells with different colors. The large pale ones are ciliated. The small darker ones are the secretory Beck cells. طبعا they will stay darker due to the fact that they are secretory cells. يعني cytoplasm بتاعهم is rich with organelles and granules.
طول يعني تفرز الفركتوز؟
اوكي مش بس فركتوز هون عشان ما نضلناش نربطها مع اسمنا الفيسيكل صح؟ احكي هاي medium that is rich for nutrition بس yes it does secrete fructose that will be used by the sperm. So alright, let's go. Now let's go to the muscularis of the fallopian tube. The muscularis, they contain smooth muscles that are arranged in 2 layers and inner circular or spiral smooth muscles. See the neural, for instance, instead of circular, they always use a spiral in 3D. And circular, they always imagine it like that, صح? بس هي حقيقة be all around. Okay? They are edge spiral smooth muscles, the same as circular, and then outer longitudinal smooth muscles. The GI. This muscular coat can undergo peristaltic contraction that will also aid in the movement of the oocyte within the fallopian tube. والouter layer will be as an outer, شو حكينا serosa ولا adventitia? Serosa, peritoneum. Histologically, serosa is composed of what? Always.
columnar.
أيوة, 2 things. Serosa equals loose connective tissue, that might contain adipose, covered by a layer of simple squamous epithelium, named what? Mesothelium. This is what serosa is in everywhere. Loose connective tissue covered with simple squamous epithelium. The only exception شفناه شوي بالأوفر. Instead of simple squamous mesothelium, we have a simple cuboidal epithelium اللي يسموه germinal epithelium. Right. Let's go to the uterus. The uterus, anatomically, you know the parts: fundus, body, and the cervix. Histologically, that coat, the wall of the uterus, is divided into three coats, three tonics. The endometrium, which represent the mucosa, and the epithelium and lamina propria. The myometrium, which represent the muscularis, and the outer perimetrium, which represent the serosa. Probably most of the uterus is within the peritoneal cavity. الأول درستوا لي broad ligament وهون درستوا إنه في ligament صح, right? The lower part of the broad ligament. In the lower aspect of the uterus, we have something called the perimetrium, which is a dense connective tissue that continues into the broad ligament of the parametrium. Sorry, well, perimetrium that's surrounded كلياتها من برا. يعني endometrium mucosa, myometrium muscularis, or perimetrium serosa. But in addition to the perimetrium, you have something called parametrium, which is a dense connective tissue that extends into the broad ligament. Hyaluronic layers. This is the uterine lumen. The endometrium هو الميوكوزا. Epithelium وlamina propria. The epithelium in the uterine tube, in the uterus, is very similar to the uterine tube. يعني simple columnar cells that contain two types of cells, ciliated and secretory. The difference in the secretory columnar cells, they will penetrate deep into the lamina propria to form the uterine glands. The uterine glands, as you can see, they are tubular glands. They will be lined by secretory columnar epithelium. As for the myometrium, the muscular layer in the uterine tube, muscularis can two layers, صح? Inner circular, outer longitudinal. In the uterus, the myometrium is actually composed of four muscular layers that are poorly defined. The four layers, the most outer one and the most inner one, are longitudinal. We have in the middle two circular smooth muscle cell layers. With two circular smooth muscle cell layers, they are strong, يعني البلك of the myometrium. والouter perimetrium شو حكينا بيري؟ سيروزا ولا ادفنتيشيا اليوترس؟ سيروزا, mostly serosa, mesothelium, and loose connective tissue. هاي الانdometrium, الepithelium والglands. As we just talked about, during the growth of the follicles and the ovaries, before ovulation, estrogen will be secreted. After ovulation, the corpus luteum will secrete progesterone. صح? These ovarian hormones will produce cyclic changes in the endometrium. Only the upper part of the superficial part, that faces the lumen of the endometrium, this is the part that will undergo these cyclic changes. We will term this the zona functionalis, the functional area, that changes during the menstrual cycle. وهي that includes the surface epithelium, most of the glands, or most of the upper part of the lamina propria. وبتكون هون اللامina propria heavily vascularized ومليانة gland substance. The deep part of the endometrium is termed zona basalis. During the whole menstrual cycle, this zona basalis will remain intact as it is. It will not be affected by the sexual hormones of the ovary. This layer serves as a stem cell layer, as a regenerating layer. And once the functionalis is shed during menstruation, the zona basalis will perform the regeneration of the uterine of the endometrium wall will occur again. Histologically, zona basalis clearly include the lower part of the uterine gland. The lower part of the lamina propria, and lamina propria in the zona basalis is actually more cellular in comparison to the zona functionalis. وتحت الزona basalis خلاص خلصنا الاندومتريوم. شو راح يكون هون فيه؟ المايومتريوم. فالاندومتريوم two parts. A superficial functionalis أكبر ولا أصغر؟ Larger or smaller? Larger. ليش اسمه functionalis? It will undergo the cyclic changes. And a deep, smaller zona basalis that will serve as a regenerative layer for the rebuilding of the endometrium after menstruation. Right. Talked about that. Let's talk about the blood supply of the endometrium. شو الارtery that supply the uterus? The uterine artery, right? Branch of the internal ileum. The uterine artery, once it gains entrance into the uterus, into the myometrium, to the middle portion of the myometrium, circular, circular. It will give rise to what we call the arched arteries, arcuate arteries. Well, arcuate arteries are branches of the uterine found within the middle layer of the myometrium. This is why the middle layer of the myometrium is sometimes termed as a stratum vasculaire, the area of the vessels. Okay. The arcuate arteries will give rise to smaller arterioles that will supply the endometrium. You have two sets of arterioles. Over here you have the straight arterioles, وهذول they are short وين متركزين بالبازال ولا بالفانكشناليس؟ بالبازال. يعني هذول will there be any changes regarding them during the menstrual cycle? No, they are hormone insensitive. And then you have the spiral arterioles, the much larger and longer spiral arterioles that extend into the functional layer. يعني راح يصير فيهم changes ولا لا؟ Yes, so they are progesterone sensitive. This will give rise to dilated capillaries, the sinusoids, or the vascular vacuum within the endometrium. الميومتريوم حكينا كم من لاير؟ 4 صح؟ With the smooth muscles. As usual, I think you already know that smooth muscles actually have the ability to secrete extracellular matrix, صح? Collagen or ground substance, just like the fibroblast. Remember, smooth muscle can function like a fibroblast. It can secrete extracellular matrix, protoglycans or collagen. Why did I mention that? The myometrial layer will undergo several changes during pregnancy. Do you know the uterus enlarges during pregnancy? Most of the enlargement is due to the myometrial layer. These smooth muscles, they will undergo both hyperplasia and hypertrophy during pregnancy. شو يعني plasia hyperplasia؟ إنه يعني mitosis. يعني smooth muscles تقدر تعمل mitosis ولا لا؟ Yes, they are the only type of muscles that have the capability to undergo mitosis, unlike the skeletal or cardiac muscles. وhypertrophy شو يعني growth in size. ومش بس هيك. During the pregnancy, these smooth muscles will produce a large amount of extracellular matrix within the wall of the uterus. طيب, after delivery, what will happen? The muscles, they will return to their normal number, to their normal size, and a lot of the extracellular matrix will be degraded and back to almost its normal size. زي ما حكينا الاندوميتريوم undergoes cyclic changes اللي هم درستوهم المنسترول cycle صح؟ in the first year. اللاندمارك هي time of ovulation اللي بتصير أي day usually at mid-cycle, day 14. At that period from day 14 to day 28, we have what we call the secretory stage of the menstrual cycle. We explained that due to the fact that the uterine gland will secrete a large amount of glycogen-rich secretion to ease the implantation under the effect of which hormone? Secreted from H, corpus luteum. This is why from day 14 to day 28 you can name it secretory stage, correct? You want to name it progestational stage, also correct? You want to name it luteal phase, كله صح, right? هلا, in case of no pregnancy at day 28, the corpus luteum will degenerate into the corpus albicans, صح؟ The drop in the level of progesterone. Okay. لما ينزل مستوى البروجستيرون, شفت السبايرال arterioles اللي شفناهم بالاندوميتريوم? They will undergo severe constriction and there will be ischemia in the wall of the uterus, and the endometrium will be shed. This is what we call the ischemic stage. It occurs in day 28. After that, the endometrium will be shed and bleeding will begin. So you have the menstrual phase. The menstrual phase is the external hallmark of the menstrual cycle. So once the female sees bleeding, okay, we start to count a new cycle. يعني once the bleeding starts, this is day 1 or day 0. Yes. فإذا secretory stage من day 14 to day 28, صح؟ ischemic to day 28. بعدين bleeding, okay, because no pregnancy, راح نعد new month. In day 0, كم من يوم بعد bleeding? Yeah, variable, right? But usually we consider 4 or 5 days, it could be 10 days, it could be عادي. Usually we consider the whole cycle 28 days, راح نعد 4 days. بعد هيك the endometrium will rebuild itself again, the proliferative phase. تحت الإفكت of أي هرمون؟ الأستروجين, that's right. الأستروجين مين أفرزه؟ مين صفقه؟ أيوه, theta will granulose in the wall of the follicle, صح? That grow under the FSH. عشان هيك the stage from day 4 to 14 is sometimes termed the follicular stage, عادي, أو the proliferative stage, the stage of growth. فإذا المنth, the first 4 days, menstrual phase, from 4 to day 14, the day of ovulation, the proliferative stage under the effect of estrogen. Day 14 to day 28, right, the secretory stage under the effect of progesterone. Day 28, ischemia that leads to bleeding and the cycle of the bleed itself. This is the different histological shape of the endometrium during the different stages. In the proliferative stage, under the effect of estrogen, it will be rebuilt again. The glands will be straight tubular glands. They will be straight, no gate. In the secretory stage, they will accumulate a large amount of secretion, so the gland will appear highly coiled due to the fact that they accumulate secretion. In the menstrual phase, the wall will be shaped, it will be infiltrated by a large amount of blood, okay, bleeding, وراح نشوف ايش an area of destruction and necrosis within the wall of the endometrium, within the lining. Yes. Yes. Yeah, هذا أخذته متذكر.
4 and 5.
لا مش هالدرجة. Okay, it can remain viable in the oviduct for 24 to 48 hours. أكيد يعني هلا كنت خدعوني إذا اثنين they want to be produced. Okay, we only have one day.
لا مو السبيرم بضل عايش 3 أيام.
That's excellent. The sperm has the ability to remain viable in the female reproductive tract for about 3 days. But it starts copulation before ovulation. For example, day 11, the sperms can remain viable within the oviduct until day 14, okay, and they can fertilize the oocyte. Good. Now, the lower part of the uterus is the cervix. The cervix differs from the remainder of the uterus in the following features. وهذول لازم تحفظوهم حفظين. Okay? كيف بيختلف السيرفكس عن البودي of the uterus histologically? One, the cervix is divided into 2 regions histologically. The upper region, which we call endocervix, had a continuous مع the remainder of the uterus is lined by simple columnar epithelium. زي the remainder of the uterus عادي. But the lower region of the cervix that impregnated the vagina, which we will call ectocervix, it will be lined with a stratified squamous non-keratinized epithelium. The 2 regions, upper cervix, endocervix, or lower ectocervix. نروح للupper cervix، شو حكينا نوع الابثيليوم؟ simple columnar عادي زي بقية اليوترس. هذا الupper cervix contain large amount of grafts زي اليوترس عادي. But the difference, the area of the cervix does not go the same cyclic changes as the remainder of the uterus. Then these glands could produce large amount of mucus, then the cervical mucus, or sometimes these glands dilate excessively, forming cyst, a pathological cyst called Mepothian cysts. Very common and خوفوش. The lower half of the cervix within the vagina stratified squamous epithelium. الجلانس راح يصيروا يقلوا بنهايه السيرفكس بتبطل في جلانس وبكل الفاجينا نو جلانس يعني اللور بارت اوف ذا سيرفكس يمكن في شويه جلانس بس الفاجينا بعدين as a whole no glands whatsoever in the vagina. The final difference وهذا هو اللي بهمنا muscularis in the cervix is actually less well developed in comparison to the myometrium or the middle of the uterus. There is not a lot of smooth muscles in the cervix. Instead, it is rich in connective tissue, collagen and elastic fibers. The significance of that is clear. The cervix is not a propulsive part of the uterus. It's a channel, passage part. The presence of elastic fibers will allow it to dilate during parturition, during short delivery. Also, شو حكينا احنا عنا؟ بالupper part في glands, cervical glands, صح؟ They produce mucus. الميوكس is a viscous structure. طب يمكن يعمل block للpassage of sperm, صح؟ At time of ovulation, the estrogen will cause the nature of this mucus to change. Instead of a highly viscous mucus, it will be a more copious watery mucus to facilitate the passage of the sperms. As for the vagina, شو نوع الابثيليوم حكينا بالفاجينا زي lower part of the cervix, stratified squamous epithelium that is non-keratinized. بعدين we have the lamina propria. هل في glands في الفاجينا? No glands in the vagina. The muscularis of the vagina contain longitudinal and circular smooth muscles. The most outer layer in the vagina شو راح تكون serosa ولا adventitia؟
adventitia.
شو رأيكم في الفاجينا؟
adventitia.
Adventitia, it is extraperitoneal, صح؟ The peritoneum, it will be covered by a layer of adventitia instead of serosa. هلا الابithelium حكينا stratified squamous non-keratinized. It has a very interesting feature. Under the microscope, the cells of the epithelium are pale. As long as they differentiate one of the surface, they will become more and more pale. Why? Due to the abundance of glycogen granules in this epithelium. Why do they contain these large amounts of glycogen granules? That is significantly here important. When the epithelium of the vagina will be shed, the glycogen will be released. The glycogen will be used by vaginal flora, bacteria, called the lactobacillus. With the glycogen, it will be fermented into lactic acid. This explains the acidic environment of the vagina due to the fermentation of this glycogen into lactic acid. Why is هل في أهمية أن تكون vagina acidic? Yes, this is clinically important. It will prevent the growth of other pathological microorganisms, fungi, and other pathological bacteria. فبالتالي تقل malaria infections. Let's go to the breast. The breast is a skinny gland. It is part of both the reproductive and the integumentary system. The secretory part of the breast is located within the superficial fascia and the pectoral region. Like any gland, it is composed of secretory portion and the duct system. دائما نوصفه histologically as a compound tubuloareolar gland. Compound يعني duct شو مالها branch صح. Tubuloareolar يعني secretory cells are either divided into circular, alveolar or acinine أو longitudinal tubules. Most of the breast is alveolar يعني secretory cells are arranged into circular alveoli. هلا these secretory alveoli, they will be divided into lobules of the breast by septa of connective tissue, strong. The connective tissue in the breast is very rich in adipose, and it will divide the breast into 15 to 25 lobules. All the alveoli in each lobule, they will drain into a large duct called the lactoferrous duct. And you have 15 to 25 lobules, يعني كم من duct راح يكون فيه? From 15 to 25 lactoferrous duct. This lactoferrous duct will eventually open into the nipple. Under the microscope, the nipple will contain from 15 to 25 opening for the lactoferrous duct. The secretory portion of the breast undergoes several changes. Okay, شو الهرمون اللي بيحفز production of milk? production, synthesis يعني. prolactin صح. The oxytocin is important for the milk ejection. هذا في الأسلوب الفسيولوجي. Now, the breast changes in different stages during the female growth. Before pregnancy, it will be a mature breast but inactive, no milk production. Histologically, you will see the ducts at stage, resting on inactive breast, but the secretory portion and alveoli are not very well developed. هذا the resting breast. Ducts, but small amounts of alveoli. Now, in a pregnancy, the alveoli will start to grow. بس مش فيه كمية كبيرة من الملك. At the final stage, the lactation stage, okay, the alveoli will become extremely dilated and they will be filled with milk. يعني 3 steps سهلين. Inactive breast, okay, في ducts, الالveoli شو مالها قليل, minimum. Pregnancy proliferating breast is called because the alveoli do appear and they do increase in size, but they do not contain a large amount of milk. They are still not yet very active. يعني. هلا finally lactating هذا active breast, you can clearly see in the lumen of the alveoli هذا whitish material هو ايش؟ accumulation of milk. تمام؟ That's it. Right. We are done.